hero.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Welcome, everybody. It's that time of the week once again. I'm joined by a massive squad, as you know the drill. It's Monday. It's 6 o'clock Eastern time. It's the one and only Around the UFL. I'm Zach Hyman, hosting this week, back from a little bit of sabbatical, I would say, from, Dirty 30 birthday, if you want to call it that. And I swear to Jaron, if you're watching the show, or if you're watching the replay, I don't miss you on purpose. It's just things happen, it seems, every time you come on.
It's a lie.
We have Evil Refa in the background producing this week. You'll hear from him later on in the show. But, folks, we got a big show today, and we also have an excellent guest coming up later in, well, one that me and Jake get to have a little bit of extra fun with. It is linebackers coach Christian Runza joining us later today. Stick with us for that later in the show. However, I'm going to get around to the rest of the crew. And you know what? I already brought up Jake. So, Jake, good to see you, man. Again, a little bit of focus show for you and I this time.
Yeah, it's about time we get one. What was the last Panther we had on? Was it Nate Brooks last year?
I think it was Brock Miller.
Yeah.
We had Brooks on in the preseason, and then we had Miller on during the
season. That's right.
After
Big
week
Cock
one.
Rock.
We talked about Bates game winner. Yep. And then it was really tough to get players and stuff during the season with how busy everybody was, so we didn't get much.
It's only going to get a little more wacky for those folks over there in Arlington and around the UFL here soon enough. Pun totally intended for the name, by the way. But, yeah, definitely was Brock Miller last time. I remember talking about Nate Brooks about Denton, Texas, so definitely haven't forgot about that conversation. That's one of my favorite moments from this show as well. But, yeah, Jake, new Panther coming on, so that'll be a fun one. Going around the horn here on my screen, clockwise and away, I got the roster man himself, the guy with all the football lingo and ins and outs. It's Nick Thorne. Nick, good to see you, buddy. How you been lately, man?
Doing good. I think the big picture thing is, cut downs this week. So, obviously not a happy time, but it is kind of that signal of, hey, the season's about to start. We're going to start seeing these rosters really take shape. We'll start to figure out who starters and backups are, in this coming week or so. So it's exciting time,
Yeah, without a doubt.
Wrapping up here.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll be talking a little bit about the training camp observations and some of those transactions today. But I mean, talk about next ATU and next UFL podcast. It's going to be some spicy conversation on really what's going on with the one massive cut this year across the board. So we'll be seeing a lot of pieces moving in and out, obviously, between that. Ducky, how you doing there? I know you got a little bit of a different alias today, but how's the popcorn? Is it meeting
Good.
your standards?
Good. My mom just made it. I'm down in her basement right now.
Oh,
She made it fresh for
Nice.
me. Yeah.
did she just pick up that Goomba plushie in the back of the room there for you?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Got that for my
Nice.
birthday.
I'm digging it. getting the playroom all organized.
Mm-hmm. Got a ball pit
Huh.
coming in next week.
Who in the
Ball
hell
fit
could
next
Stafoshi Nakamoto be?
I wonder. That's someone I haven't seen in forever, or have seen. I don't know.
What the hell?
Oh, chat's
Oh,
getting
I was like, dude.
Chat's getting going today. I love it already. Finally, I obviously can't leave out James. Mr. Larson, good to have you on. Again, it's like full Panthers discussion focus, not only with the show and the guests we have on. I mean, sir, you sat down with the commander-in-chief of our own Michigan faithful himself, Mike Nolan, and had a wonderful one-on-one conversation with him as well. I'm just going to kick that off. Tell me about that combo. I mean, just for readers to kind of check that out.
Yeah, no, that was a really cool experience, and I'm very appreciative of Michigan and the UFL making that one happen. Their PR guy reached out to me and was like, hey, Coach is going to be in town this weekend. You want to meet up with him? I was like, hell yeah. So I got to talk with him, sit down with him, cover the usual, talk about training camp. If you guys want to go to pfnewsroom.com, check out the article. It's got all sorts of stuff on training camp, the quarterback battle, regrets from last year's playoff loss against Birmingham. So it's some really good stuff in there. And I'm excited about this Michigan team, man. They've got a lot of talent. Coach Nolan, just in general, is one of the nicest guys in this league. It's funny because him and Mike Riley both share the same name, but they both have the same kind of just personality and tendencies. Very easygoing people, nice guy, and a great coach. So it was a super cool experience and very appreciative of the league making that one happen.
Good Lord, talk about somebody I do miss from this space is Mike Riley's face and that friendly,
gosh.
just I don't know, very camaraderie-driven person that he is. But I mean, Mike's been a joy in this league since he's joined up just a few seasons ago. Really, really one of the coaches that I think is taking advantage of truly finding a new avenue to go and explore outside the NFL circles. So, Ken Wisenhunt is looking to be and will likely be that next one. So, anyway, folks, got a big jam-packed show today. Like I said, we got Christian Runza coming up here, linebacker coach for the Panthers, later today. However, like I said, training camp talk. Again, cuts coming up though next week. It's a big deal. However, we look at observations. Plenty of transactions still happening. Plenty of changes moving around, and some young talents coming in and out and about. Gentlemen, feel free to open up the discussion. Any thoughts right now in our stage of training camp we're in? Because I mean, like I said, it's kind of that middle ground. We've been through this a few seasons already. It's, we're kind of waiting to see how rosters pan out. We're still kind of going off, any quick observations of people going down to Arlington. I know there was an open practice and some discussions you could that they had with coaches and folks in personnel down there earlier this week. So anything that it's sticking out to you right now?
I think I'll jump in and, just speaking with Coach Nolan yesterday, and cuts are coming up quick. I mean, for Michigan, it'll be this Thursday. I think most teams will be Thursday. Might see a couple teams have them on Friday. But it's going to be tough because Wednesday, all of these teams are going to be having more joint practices and scrimmages with another UFL team. So that's going to be crucial in deciding, for these coaches and for these staff members, who are we going to keep, who are we going to let go. And it's so razor thin. And it's funny because Skip Holtz was talking last week about how difficult these cuts are going to be. And he felt like not only are they really tough right now, but he felt like by the time they actually got to the cuts, it was going to be even more difficult. He was like, I almost wish that I could just make the cuts now because it'd be slightly easier than seeing all these guys continue to compete because they're all literally so capable of being on these rosters. And another thing, too, which I find fascinating, is every single coach who's talked about it and talks about making these cuts, they're like, look, any of the guys that we cut, we firmly believe they could start another team. So I think we definitely will see some serious movement once these cuts are made, where especially you look at a team like Birmingham, who's going to have to cut a lot of legitimate talent. We're going to see some of those guys picked up by Houston or Memphis or Arlington, I feel like, or at least they should be, because those teams could really use some help, and I think we'll definitely see that happen.
We've already seen that happen. You know, DC cuts Hudal Brown late last week, and then Houston picked him up today, and that's just going to keep happening. But yeah, I think right now, as far as like transactions goes, anyone who's being brought in, I'm very kind of keeping an eye on, just because they're getting in so late. So I'm kind of curious and trying to figure out, okay, is this someone that is getting here late, but because the only reason he signed is because he knows he's going to be a part of that 50. I look at like Fayon Hicks, who just signed with Birmingham. I'm not like betting on him being on the roster, but that's a quality guy that you're bringing in, like, I don't know, what was it, probably 6-7 days before your cut down, which is really interesting to me. So that's one I'm really watching. And then others, it's like, okay, it feels more like, okay, we needed an extra body. Hey, maybe there's some guys who are banged up at tackle. We need to bring in an extra tackle. We have an extra spot. Let's just get so-and-so in here. So, it's definitely kind of interesting to see all that transpire, but I definitely am watching those transactions. I think Birmingham, and I'm also going to point out San Antonio. Those two teams are really deep, at least on that's an interesting take.
Yeah, Thorne, my face was not at your comments. It was at the
it just covered me up.
Just to be clear, that was okay.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, that totally threw my train of thought. But both those teams have like a lot of depth, right? Where like guys who I have like rated at the end of their depth chart are still really quality guys. So those are the ones that I'll really watch. Like, maybe a team's like, hey, we're really hurting at corner. We're going to get a corner from them. But in general, I kind of think there's not going to be a ton of that happening. When everyone says, hey, we really like our, 51st guy who's getting cut, not all those guys are going to end up going somewhere else. I think more often than not, you see those guys jump to the CFL or, even sometimes arena leagues. Like it much more is like guys who end up just kind of leaving spring football or just waiting for an opportunity to come up mid-season with injuries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's I think it's just commonplace in any of these football leagues. Really, is like, yeah, you might get cut, you might be let go, but it's always about when you're sticking with an opportunity, you're sticking with your connections. You want to make sure you are a phone call away from acting and reacting to get where you need to go. Once again, Thorne, we've seen this several years now in spring football. Guys go down, injuries happen. It's a part of the game whatsoever. So as long as you have that connection and your agent's got you on speed dial, or the coach has you on speed dial with your agent connected up, it's not too bad to go and look for somebody that already has been in camp and kind of was familiar with what you're looking to do. Or if you're another team and, again, a lot of these teams, again, they're sharing similar facilities, they're doing joint practices. I mean, maybe you didn't pick someone up, but you're going, well, I can't get them right now, but I'm going to keep them on a short list. Because, like, if I do need somebody, like, I can still kind of look and see if maybe his rights fall free and, get out of the waiver system. So, like, that is all these kind of jostling pieces that it's kind of the game within the game.
Absolutely. I think of last year, DJ Daniel is the one that immediately comes to mind of a guy who didn't make the 50-man roster outright. And by the end of the year, obviously Memphis wasn't very good last year, but like he was a starting cornerback for them. So this is come on, you can't be saying stuff like that. I'm trying. I have a point, and it just keeps weird stuff keeps popping up. Okay. But yeah, so like there's guys who are going to get cut who are going to be brought back and end up having good seasons. So just because they're part of this group that gets cut, and we saw guys jump teams. I think of like Cole Cabral for Michigan last year. Guy who gets cut from Birmingham and ends up being arguably one of their better offensive linemen. He was a rotational guy who would kind of like split time at center and guard, and ended up getting an NFL opportunity after the season. So like, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the end for these guys, but we'll see. There'll be a lot of roster shuffling, I'm sure, here.
Yeah, and I think what'll be interesting too is seeing who ends up retiring because they got cut. Because I mean, there are some veteran guys out here, or there's guys that are like that have been in the NFL for a few years, and this is like their last shot to get back to the NFL. And if they get cut, then you wonder how many of them are gonna be like, all right, if I can't make it in the UFL, I guess I gotta call it quits. So I feel like we'll definitely see that because we saw a decent amount of that last year too. Not as much as I expected. There were some like quiet retirements, but I think we'll see a little bit more of that this year as well, which will be interesting to watch how that all plays out.
Yeah, I just want to. Oh, sorry, you can go first.
I'll also say with more of these leagues coming in with AF1 and obviously IFL getting some guys back into the UFL, you know, maybe we don't see quite as many retirements, but I mean, I guess that's to be seen.
I just wanted to. It's always when I'm talking too. So I think Ref's back there trying to mess with me.
Right. Evil Ref.
I just wanted to. Someone asked like who the surprise cut. Yeah, that's the one. I'm not gonna give you a specific name in mind. But it's gonna be someone that's gonna be like a 3-4 year starter in the league. There's always a couple of those kind of guys. Birmingham's a spot I'd look because they have some guys who've been around for a while. I could see some of those guys end up being surprise cuts.
Nick, remember you did that last year with Scooby, and there was a lot of outrage. And
why do you think I didn't do that this year?
Alex Magoo.
But like there are some guys like that are going to
Tucky, he's
start
going to
aging.
lead the wide receivers in yards. What are you talking about?
He's their starting wide receiver. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of the ones I always look for. Of like the fans get outraged and like, what? How could this guy get cut? But it's like, well, he's been around here. He's going into year 3, year 4. You know, it's not surprising these guys are going to kind of decline. I think like Channing Stribling last year for Birmingham. Those kind of guys are the ones that tend to be the ones that like when people look back, come on, man, it's every time. Man. So yeah, it would. The only way that Jabril Cox gets cut is if he actually reports. So you know, I would have loved to known that before I wrote an article about him, but you know, anyway. So we'll see. I think that's going to be the big surprise cuts. It's going to be someone like that.
It does happen every year, and we get attached. Look, we get attached to some of these players. Is how it happens as well. That's why you hear a lot of like stuff where like we talk about Channing Stribling. You know, again, you see a guy who's been performed at a top level for several years prior, goes to a team like Birmingham, and you're like, oh yeah, should be a lock, you know. And then you realize like, you know, it's not exactly that. You know, younger talent comes up. You're on a team that evaluates and is honestly a championship caliber team that's going to be, as we've seen, very much more nitpicky on certain roster decisions. So, you know, every GM, every coach, they're different with how they evaluate things. And honestly, you know, I still think, like for example, Channing. I still thought Channing could have played, but you know, sometimes also guys like we'll see with some retirements coming up, they're ready to. They maybe are kind of on that fence. Maybe it's time to move on. You know, and that's a hard decision to make. Anyone who's ever played football, you know, you always remember that last moment you were on the field. Doesn't matter what level you're at, high school, college, professional, you know. Jesus, now I'm getting it too. Like throwing this stuff right up there. Anyway, it's always hard to step away from the field, is what it is.
I missed that comment.
I'm done. My quote's ended. Dark Ref is here. It's fully arrived. Anyway.
Oh gosh, Todd Simmons.
Yeah, that one. You know, I have a little bit of soft spot for him because of certain things that happened with him with AFL last year. Guys really been kind of grinding to kind of get a spot and kind of get up to another level. So, you know, that one was hard, but also when we talk about the roster he was on, that was such a competitive receiving room to be going into, though, too.
Yeah, he already landed in a new spot, just signed with Vegas, the Nighthawks, right? That's the team name.
Yeah. I mean, he's been in this space, so I'm glad he's getting in there, too. You know, but like, it does stick because you're like, damn, man, he gets the UFL, and then you got to get into what I would consider a roadblock of receiving options through the Arlington Renegades, you know?
Yeah, he's kind of like he's been like almost a renegade here for a couple of years. I remember, I think he might have been, I can't remember if he was a draft pick and then didn't get signed or got signed and got, you know, taken away by the merger, but he was on the Renegades a while ago and then got another opportunity this year, but you know, it just seems like that's not going to happen at this point.
No, afraid not. But it's good to see him go to the IFL, which, you know, something we talk about these cuts too. One thing I think that is in the IFL's kind of bucket, you know, talking about just like players say they move on and say they look at options outside of this, you know, noticed in recent years, a lot of CFL people in the scene really like that league. Like say you get cut from the UFL, you go IFL, and then you do well in the IFL at like a position like a DB or receiver or even running back, you know, a lot of the CFL guys I've noticed, they like those evaluations of those talents on there because that indoor system is very similar to how CFL teams run their offenses or defenses. So, you know, just kind of more throwing it up as options if you get cut or if you're looking around, because like it's different than it was a decade ago. You have much more you can look at that I think actually gets you an avenue to a professional scene like the CFL or UFL again, or it keeps you ready. So that's kind of what I think. That's how I look at the IFL anymore. Is it keeps you ready for your next big jump.
Yeah, and I think, you know, not only that, but it's also super helpful just to help some of these younger guys develop. Like, Thorne and I were just talking about this, which I was able to confirm, is the Panthers let go offensive lineman Duro Ajayi, who had signed. He's like a small school guy. He was with them in camp for a few days, but he was let go about a week or so ago, and he's just signed with, I think it's an IFL team. Nick, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was an IFL team.
Tuscan Sugar Skulls, I believe. Was
Tucson,
the
sir. You'll get a lot of people. You'll get a lot of people in my neck of the woods very angry. I just gotta sit you down here.
I'm not an arena guy. Don't blame me. I don't know it like that.
You know,
like Tucson's a small town though. Like Tucson is. Come on now.
I just want because of that a Tuscan Raiders team somewhere.
Well, anyways, you know what? Moving on. Ducky, you're really awful.
I'm whiffing, dude. I'm whiffing.
What is happening?
Hell yeah.
There he goes.
The Ducky you lagged on my screen. I didn't see it.
You're fucking lying.
Whoa. Oh yeah.
I did it. Chat saw it. See, what's his face said?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things that we could talk about a little bit is some of the quarterback battles here in camp.
Yes, please.
I mean, that's one that Michigan still really tight. Houston is really tight. Memphis is really tight. St. Louis we still don't have clarity on. Like we'll see. I mean, every coach that I've been talking to lately during these media availabilities, I mean, they haven't alluded to much. Nolan just talking to him yesterday. I mean, he said it's very, very close between Etling and Perkins. And they both bring, like, Etling's and Perkins, he said they both bring similar attributes to the table. So he's not too concerned with who ends up starting because it won't change up the offense a whole lot.
I'm glad someone's not concerned.
I am hoping it's Perkins because I feel like, especially after watching that playoff game with Etling at the helm, I think Bryce is the way to go, but we'll see. Houston, they're very high on all three quarterbacks. There's really no clarity there yet, which is interesting because I really thought Anthony Brown would have the edge. But I sat down with Eric Price last week, at the end of last week, and he was very high on Nolan Henderson. The way he talked, I wouldn't be shocked if Nolan ends up as the week 1 starter over Brown.
Yeah, he took all the, from what I heard, I wasn't there, but he took all the starter reps for the joint practice with Arlington that was available from people who are there. Shout out James Baker, he was and Mad Mill, but they were on the scene and they were saying that he was taking all of the 1 reps. So at this point, I would be kind of surprised if it's Anthony Brown, which is a little disappointing for me because I just really like Brown. But Nolan Henderson gives that team a floor, so I think he's a quality starting caliber UFL quarterback, but that one's really interesting to me because I really felt like once they got Brown in there, he was the high profile guy that would have been the obvious starter. So we'll see. It could also be they've done it in the port where they split reps, so we'll see if they do that.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Didn't the Generals do that?
I mean,
a lot of teams do that.
A lot of teams have done that. Yeah.
I mean, quite
Birmingham.
frankly, that's one of my main questions. Is we can talk about we talk about these QB battles, but I'm almost wondering how many teams do the route where you're going to just see split rep week 1, and how much do they stick to that game plan moving forward, or just finite pick one off of results from the first week. I mean, remember Birmingham stuck with splitting reps for near a quarter of the season, and then finally settled in on Martinez. Only until Martinez cooled off a little bit in the playoffs with our game against the Panthers before they switched back. So, I mean, it's not unfamiliar, but you know how I am with splitting reps. I got my own, my own 2 cents all the time.
Is that actually Chris Odom in the chat?
No way.
If that would be awesome. If that
the
is,
legend.
Welcome aboard.
Houston Gamblers legend, now at the Renegades. Shout out Chris Odom. He's a huge pickup for Arlington and their defensive line, losing Vic Beasley and a couple other pieces. So I'm excited to see what he can do. What's going on, Chris?
Chris Odom adding spice to the Texas Throwdown this year.
He heard Renegades and he heard James Baker.
Hey, he said it is. It is
Came out of the
him.
woodwork.
To get back to Houston, though, I really am curious how that QB situation pans out. Because I like Nolan. What concerns me with him a little bit is I don't think he's the most accurate quarterback, especially on deep balls. And I think you need a quarterback that can throw an accurate deep ball in this league, especially because Houston, look at their offense last year, and the least explosive offense in the league. Like, even Memphis at least had their moments with, like, some big David Davis touchdowns and things like that. Houston, outside of, like, that one big Justin Hall touchdown in Week 9 against your Panthers, Zach, we didn't really get much explosiveness out of them at all, with the exception of Kirk Merritt, who was only active for, 3 games? So I like Nolan and his team. I mean, the thing is, Eric Price loves Nolan so much because he can scramble. He said, when I was talking to Price, he's like, he's so fast. Like, he can evade the sack so easily. That's a big part. That will be a big part of their offense this year. We're going to see Houston running a lot of RPOs, I feel like.
Anything to mitigate, kind of that, I wouldn't say deficit in all line. Nick probably, I imagine, is going to elaborate on this as well. But anything to kind of mitigate pressure, which is more common than not with a level of league like this, the better, which always seems to be how you see these mobile QBs the last 2 or so seasons kind of starting taking over as these like primary, I think, offense driving weapons, because they're able to buy just a little bit more time that maybe you couldn't have with a guy like, say, I don't know, like a Clayton Thorson back a few years ago, where it's more statuesque. Not saying that's a bad thing. Luis Perez shows you can do that, but like, you got to have a good line behind you to do that.
And that's exactly what Price emphasized, was that they want to lean into a mobile quarterback this year. They didn't really do that last year. And look, I want to give credit to Reed Sinnett because I feel like under the circumstances, he did perform relatively well. But Houston, if they're anything like they were a year ago, they need a mobile quarterback. Like, they cannot run it back with a Reed Sinnett or a Clayton Thorson or even a Kenji Bahar. They need someone that can legitimately run the ball.
And that's what's really interesting about that, because especially your comments about what Price is looking for, because I think all 3 of these guys are like kind of that like second tier athlete. Like you look at like a Perkins or a Magoo, I think those guys are better. Duggan, they're all like the like top tier. These guys are kind of like decently athletic, but not like, game-changing Adrian Martinez level. And so I don't really see a difference in there off the bat, but maybe there's something they're seeing in camp when you're going, rep for rep and you're seeing them next to each other. For Nolan, the thing that's interesting to me is the fact that, like, I agree what you're saying with, like, some accuracy issues, but for me, the issue with him was always kind of, like, big play in the passing game. He doesn't have the strongest arm. That's kind of what limited him from, like, the NFL. And so, he doesn't have the upside, I think, of like Anthony Brown or even Jalen McClendon. But, they have a lot of weapons like Justin Hall and, Kirk Merritt, who you mentioned, that could potentially be kind of pointing towards, okay, that RPO, hey, we're just going to get it in the guys' hands and let them make plays. I don't know if they have enough of those guys, because we saw, Merritt gets hurt and it's like, oh man, we don't really have another running back that has that skill set last year. And I still don't think there's really one of those guys who are that equivalent if Merritt were to get hurt again. And so that's
like
really
if Merritt or Hall goes down or Chisholm, it's like, who's really next? They at least have Josh Peterson back, which he'll be a big piece. I mean, he's a very good receiving tight end, can also block well. But to your point, like, you look at some of the guys that Birmingham or San Antonio has brought in, and then you look at how Houston, they brought back their key playmakers, but the guys that they brought in outside of that, it's like they're not elevating the room. So if your key playmakers go down, who's going to step up? And you're in big trouble once again.
You're right. They're not elevating the room.
This guy.
They're elevating the league.
I was just about to point
Ref
out
is different.
how funny it is that this is turned into the Roughnecks show today, and it's the one
Ref
episode Ref isn't here, but he's just like lurking in the background listening to us.
Well, I feel like we could switch it over to Memphis a little bit because I mean, as it stands right now, it's a talked to Wisenhunt today, and both EJ Perry and Troy Williams are still getting equal reps in practice. So there's no decision made yet there at who's going to be QB1, and that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that one's interesting to me because I could genuinely see it going either direction. The one with like Michigan, I'm like, okay, I get it's a battle. I think eventually you got to go with Perkins though. Like even if it's maybe not week 1, it's gonna be Perkins long term. Troy Williams and EJ Perry are so wildly different to me, and it is a little bit of the Nolan Henderson, Anthony Brown discussion about like upside versus floor, where like, but it's like even more pronounced where EJ Perry has like one of the lowest floors from what we saw early last year. It was like some of the worst quarterback play for the first like 2 weeks that he was healthy.
This guy, just a hater.
But you look back, to when he first got with Michigan in that playoff run, that's some of the best, especially that second half against, that vaunted Pittsburgh Mauler defense. You see the upside, you see the floor, and it's like, wow, I don't know what version of EJ Perry you're getting because we've never seen him play long term. So he has a little bit more upside, whereas Troy Williams has always felt like the even kill. It's kind of that similar Nolan Henderson where it's like, okay, I don't think there's anything in his game that is oh, he's the best at this, but he's just really cerebral. He's just a really cerebral, smart quarterback. He will get, guys the ball in space. And so if you have good weapons around him, he's a perfectly fine, kind of point guard kind of quarterback. And so I think I could see depending on, certainly if you feel really good about the defense, I think Troy Williams makes a lot of sense because it's like, hey, Perry had one of the worst turnover-worthy play percentages last year. He will turn the ball over. He will make some poor decisions. His processor isn't one of the best in the league. And it's like, hey, Troy Williams is not going to turn the ball over. So if you want to have an offense that maybe lacks some of the dynamism, but is going to get you 20 points every game and trust the defense and that kind of style, I think Troy Williams is perfect for that. And so I genuinely don't know. It really depends on what they're seeing in practice and what kind of team they want to be, which we don't know because we've never seen a Ken Wisenhunt offense.
Troy Williams. That's all I gotta say. Troy Williams. Sorry, just gotta put this in there. Troy Williams is the Michael Vick of the UFL, and Michael Vick was the Troy Williams of the NFL.
Ignoring that comment, Nick, I'm with you. I think my biggest take on both of those guys is their decision making has been very, very inconsistent. And we didn't get very big sample sizes of what they did last year, right? But in the sample size that we got, Troy Williams, look at what he did, week 5 against Michigan, where he opened up the game with 3 turnovers and he's overthrowing passes, he's missing his reads. I'm really hoping that we see him develop that aspect of his game a little bit more. Same with EJ Perry. You go back and watch the film from those first couple of games. He started to find his rhythm a little bit more down the stretch. The Houston game he looked great, but you look at what he did against Birmingham. Look at what he did against St. Louis. I'm looking at balls that he's throwing, and they're 4 or 5 yards underthrown. And these aren't deep balls. These are 5-10 yard outs that he's just throwing into the ground. Now, it didn't help that Ryan Pope was letting every defensive end run by him without even trying to block. That wasn't helpful. But still, there were some really just felt like should be routine throws for EJ that I'm looking back and I'm just what? It's not like he was really under that much duress. I don't know. I'm hoping that both those guys whoever cleans up their decision making more is going to win the starting job, in my opinion.
No, your description describes to me someone that when we talk about quarterbacks, we talk about that internal clock. The internal clock sometimes winds a little bit faster when you think you're seeing something that might be coming your way a little quicker. Yeah. Or if you might have some PTSD one or too many times from taking some hits, as well. And I think it's more on the side of that. I think EJ's clock, does kind of wind faster than some other QBs to where he kind of rushes a few plays. And that's where you get this kind of metronome of just completely wide pendulum swings of what you get for either someone who's completely on it and is going to drain a 60-yard touchdown pass on one play, or another where you're saying he's going to throw a freaking basically a softball pitch into the dirt. Even if he doesn't have to scramble out, he finds a way to make it more difficult than he is. And it's he needs to be in a rhythm. Some QBs you watch in the NFL, honestly, I'll take it from my own rookie season, whatever. But Caleb Williams, to me, I'm a Bears fan. He would be a guy, he has to get in a rhythm, not someone that, you get a 3 and out and he's just going to tune it up. You have to get a first down and all of a sudden you start getting your confidence up. Some quarterbacks just happen to be like that in game. It's just about getting that feeling of like, okay, I can do this. I found a little bit of my, niche, if you will, against this defense. So, it kind of feels like EJ has always been like that with Michigan. See if things are a bit different with, say, like a Ken Wisenhunt, just more a QB specialist. But I do want to put my point that Troy Williams, I think, maybe this is me reading a little too into this or not, but I feel like with the way they're constructing the roster, having familiar pieces from the Pittsburgh Maulers days, having some staff from that said time frame, I almost wonder if that helps getting in where you're like, hey, we do kind of trust this guy. Like, if he's like neck and neck, like, we've seen he's successful with some of the people we have and has targets he's familiar with. That's something I wonder if maybe that gives him like a slight edge there. And then you just kind of see how the season progresses where maybe EJ gets reps if things go south. But that's how I'm viewing it right now, is I feel like that familiarity with that past pieces of the roster and coaching staff might actually help kind of sell the deal a bit more on Troy.
Yeah. 2 points to that. First off, I want to point out that yes, those situations were really bad last year. And we've seen, at the biggest stage, even the best quarterback on planet Earth can get a rushed processor and start throwing errant balls. And, that happens to everyone when, you feel like you're about to get sacked at any moment. So especially with Troy Williams, because that was his reality. He was always feeling like, hey, our defense wasn't very good last year. We have to, dig ourselves out of the lead. He had to force more passes. I think that can attribute to some of that. Whereas you look at 2023 Mahler's Troy, he knew, okay, I can rely on the defense. I'm not going to force anything. I'm just going to, get, matriculate the ball down the field and, get field goals, get a few touchdowns, and, that'll be enough to win the game. And oh man, I just totally blanked on the second half of that. Man, that's brutal. All right, we'll move on. Yeah, you hate to see it. You hate to see it.
Last show you guys will see Thorn on.
Yeah, it's over.
Well, I'll
too focused on that.
I'll jump in with...
Oh, I remember now.
He recovered it.
Yes, I got it. Was Troy Williams talking about the weapons and the Maulersness? I think a thing that I just literally thought of was the way they've constructed their running back group might point towards Troy Williams, because they've gone for that bigger back, and all of them are kind of that power runner. They don't really have a bunch of hey, we're gonna be in shotgun all game, and we're gonna have the guy run a bunch of routes. I mean, they can do that, but these are guys that are much more bigger. Hey, we're gonna I formation, run the ball 15-20 times to them. So that also kind of points to hey, this is much more of a Troy Williams led offense, and we'll see. I could be off on that, and maybe they're planning on they're better receiving threats than I realized. But yeah, sweet.
Speaking
Look who it is.
What's going on?
The man himself, Christian Runza, Michigan Panthers linebackers coach, joins us on the show. Christian, how's it going, man?
Doing well, man. Just finishing up practice 13, getting stuff ready for practice 14 tomorrow, man. It's exciting time. You got games coming up in a week and a half, so we're getting real close back to some good UFL ball, man. So we're all fired up.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a whirlwind for you guys down there in training camp. A lot to do in a short period of time. How's training camp been treating you these last couple weeks?
It's been good. It's a grind. It's been good because we've had so many returning players on both sides of the ball. So we've been able to kind of start from step 3 or step 4 in the playbook as opposed to step 1. So real early in camp, we were able to kind of get to different levels of the playbook that you normally get to in week 2 or week 3 in previous training camps. So a lot of continuity, a lot of new guys that are hungry and ready to fight and compete for a championship. So, and hopefully get that shot back in the NFL, because that's why we're all here, So it's been great. It's been a grind, but biggest thing right now is just trying to keep the guys healthy going into week 1,
No, absolutely. And I was just talking to Coach Nolan yesterday, and like one of the big things for Michigan last year was that you guys just weren't healthy at the end of the season with guys that were going down with injury and with the smaller roster size and who you can have active on game day. That makes it tough. But for you guys here in training camp, like you talked about, a lot of returning pieces, and you bring back the entire coaching staff. How important is that for camaraderie and chemistry? So you can get off on the right foot here in week 1.
100%. I mean, both sides of the ball, everyone understands the scheme, the terms, all the verbiage that we use, right? I mean, at the end of the day, football is football, but the hardest part about learning a playbook is learning the terminology in it, right? And for some reason in this game, we call the same things a million different terms. So it all depends on who your coach is, who your coordinators are, and what they like to call things. But we got to skip past, hey, this is what we call this coverage, or this is what we call this play on offense, right? Everybody kind of has a good understanding coming in. Because we have so many vets that are coming back, and then they're able to help the rookies, help the new guys that are in. So it's been a really good transition from year 1 with this full staff that we've had to year 2. Made it really, really easy to coach every day. And now we get to focus on more of the details of the calls earlier in camp, as opposed to just doing your assignment, why we call this call, when we call this call, right? What is my footwork supposed to be in this situation and why, right? As opposed to just making sure I know where I'm supposed to be. Now we're talking about why you need to be there, right? And the details behind it. So it's been a great, really smooth transition. Obviously Coach Nolan's done a great job. The whole staff wouldn't be back if we didn't love working for that guy. I think that's also something that's really important. He does a great job with us. He's a great leader, great mentor, especially for a guy like me that's a younger guy. I mean, I'm 28 years old. So for me to be able to learn from a guy like Coach Nolan, 40 years of NFL experience, I mean, almost 20 years as an NFL coordinator, head coach in the NFL. I mean, and he's a linebackers guy. So for a guy like me, I mean, it's unbelievable to be able to learn from him. And obviously everyone else on staff takes their bits and pieces from him, because he's seen more ball than I could even imagine. He's been in every situation you could imagine. So it's been great.
No, absolutely. And we got a full panel here, including a couple Panthers fans. But before
right.
we get to Jake and Zach, who I'm sure you're familiar with already, I got to pass the mic to Nick Thorne, because you guys have a bit of a Towson connection. So, Nick, take it away.
We do. Yeah. What's up, man? I see the Towson shirt. I know you were working over there with Coach Shinnick, man. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. So
awesome guy.
Yeah.
Not too much connective tissue from your time to mine, but
yes,
like Lance is still there.
My
all
guy.
the kind of support staff guys, but
yeah,
sweet. So my first question is actually a different CAA team, Monmouth, which is where you played. You guys just added a running back from Monmouth, and Jaden Sheridan, who was a great player at that school. And so, he's made some buzz here and kind of made some story, headlines, the little training camp reports have come out. And so I just wanted to, ask you about, what are you seeing from him? What's your guys' relationship? Just kind of what you seen from him.
Yeah. So Jaden and I have a great relationship. Obviously, we're both alums from Monmouth. I actually got to coach against him in 2023 when my last year at Towson, playing at Monmouth. And then in 2024, I was on staff at Monmouth as well. So actually, no, 2022, I was my last year at Towson. So that was when I coached against him. In 23, got to coach him his senior year. And he was as dynamic as it gets at the FCS level. I mean, led the country in rushing, was a finalist for the Walter Payton Award, which is the Heisman for FCS Player of the Year. So he has all the accolades, but, and seeing him now, he has taken his game to another level. Obviously when you have that transition from a smaller school, whether it's FCS, D2, D3, you don't know really how it's going to translate at this level. And his game is translated. He's taken all of his weaknesses and he's really worked on them to make him his strengths. He's gained a ton of weight. He looks a lot bigger than I remember him from a year and a half ago. And he's still got that same speed and burst that I remember. And that's what he was known for. I mean, he's got a great combination of quickness, lateral quickness and top end speed to take it to the house, which, we've had really good running backs the last couple of years. Obviously, Reggie Corbin in 23, and last year, Wes Hills, Nate McCrary, and, Matt Colburn splitting the load. But, to me, Jaden is kind of a missing piece to our style of running attack that we didn't really have in the past, which is that top end, take it to the house speed. I think he's going to be a great addition and a great fit for our team.
Awesome. So my next question is a little, nerdy linebacker one. So we've kind of seen, I feel like we get to this point in the year and, people talk about the draft and how like the hit rate on linebackers is really poor and how, it seems like the NFL can never figure it out. And you have, for every Patrick Queen who ends up developing, you have a bunch of other guys who don't really hit. And so I was kind of curious, from what I've heard through that whole thing is just that like, hey, we don't ask linebackers to do a lot at the college level. They just, see ball, hit ball, run around, be athletic. And so I'm kind of curious, do you see that at the UFL level? Or is it like, hey, we have Frank Ginda, who's this, NFL vet. We can, put everything on him. We don't really see that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of curious what your view on that development from linebackers going from college to the pros.
I mean, a lot of it is, at the college level, you do have to make calls and things like that. But, at the pro level, you have to take it to the next step, right? There, not only do you have to make just the front alignment calls, but then there's checks based on motions, right? There's checks based on formations. And that's things that, again, sometimes people don't ask you to do that. And I also think the reason for that in college is there's so much tempo, right? A lot of teams in college are trying to up tempo you that defensively you're forced to be very basic. Not saying everybody's like that, but and then when you get, at least in our defense, we teach a little bit different linebacker play. We teach you to play linebacker like a running back. I want you to fit on the ball. We believe that in a zone run scheme, linebackers make every tackle, right? So we have to be able to fit our primary gap and honor our primary gap. But my secondary gap is the football. All right. We want to finish on the football in everything we do. And Coach Nolan has done a great job of instilling that in me and the players. Right. And that's kind of who we are as a linebacker core. But, when it comes to the NFL, obviously each scheme's different. A lot of times in college, you're kind of a one gap fit defense where I have my gap. But you don't make plays like that. We want you to make plays. So that's at least what we're preaching. And that's what I'm going to preach for the rest of my career. I might have the A gap, but I don't care if the ball hits in the B gap, you better be getting in that B gap and finish on the ball, and also, at the end of the day, things just happen faster. It's a different level of speed at this next level. So you got to be a quick processor. You got to be able to obviously be physical, but you have to be really smart and able to make the checks, make the calls, and then worry about what you have to do yourself. When the bullets are flying, it ain't an easy task at the end of the day, because you see it a lot with quarterbacks too, right? Guys that don't translate that or have all the talent in the world, and it may just be because of up here sometimes, because to me they're very similar positions. You're really the quarterback of the defense and you're the linebacker, right? You have the headset in, you're the one calling the plays, you're the one making sure everyone's aligned and set, and at the end of the day, you still better be able to do your job.
Awesome, appreciate it.
Pass the mic over to Jake, also known as UFL Shadow. I know you guys are probably relatively familiar with each other, and we finally got Jake on the show because we got a Panthers player on here. So
that's right. Hold on one sec. Sorry, I got the automatic lights on here. I gotta wave at the lights.
He's looking like evil ref back there.
We're clipping that.
It's the evil
on.
ref doing a lot of stuff today.
There we go. Gotta try and get that fixed. Sorry, guys.
Jake, the mic's yours.
Jake, what's up, man? How we doing?
Doing good. Getting excited. 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks out to see you guys.
That's right.
So,
be seeing you in a couple weeks out there for the Birmingham game.
Yep, absolutely. Right there at the 50.
That's right. As always.
Of course. So, obviously, defensive guy. So, I can ask you who you think is the most improved position group. Wouldn't be surprised to say your guys. But on the offensive side, what position do you think has been the most improved from last year to this year?
I would say it's the wide receiver group. Our wide receiver group, we've signed some guys that are legit NFL players in our opinion. Like the first guy that jumps to my mind has been Malik Turner. He's had an unbelievable camp. He is pretty unguardable today. It doesn't matter really who's on him, but he runs routes like an NFL receiver runs routes. He knows how to stem, get you off your line, and goes up and gets it. And he's got the speed to take it to the house, which is the most important thing. Obviously, Marcus Sims is Marcus Sims. I'm not trying to downplay him. I see Ossi's had a great camp. I mean, he's battled through injuries. He's been tough as nails. Samson, to me, sets the tone of that room. He is the physical, tough receiver in that room, just like his brother is. It runs in the family. Same with Kai. He's the physical, tough safety that we got that sets the tone of the defense. Obviously, Devin Ross is back. Devin flies. Devin flies like he always does. And there's a ton of guys in that room that have just continuously gotten better throughout camp. Coach Fairman does a great job with those guys. I mean, Steve Kaiser is to us. I mean, he's the reason that if we have any success, it's because of him. To us, it's players over plays. Coaching is overrated, as Coach Nolan says all the time. If you have better players, you will win, right? And that's kind of, and to us, we feel we have a really good team, and it's just about putting our guys in the right position for them to be successful. But the receiver room has been really, really good. We think defensively going against them, comparing them to guys we've seen last year, right? We think it's probably the top half in the league for sure. And it's been a really tough camp. Our DBs have competed their tails off, and they've looked really good as well. But I mean, I'm really excited to see what our receivers bring to the table this year, because I think they got a shot to be a really, really good group.
I was hoping you'd say that, because it'll certainly make Etling or Perkins' job a little bit easier to throw to guys that are wide open and burning the secondary.
I hope so. I hope so as well.
Zach, you're up next. Another Panthers fan on the panel. We're fully representing Michigan this week. That's for sure.
That's right. Hey, where's the ref? Where's the ref? Where's he at? Is he in the back corner somewhere?
He's hiding.
He's hiding.
He'll pop up in about 2 seconds. One.
Here we go. There he is.
I have, out of full transparency, there's no curtains on any show that we have. I have a migraine today. And
I'm sorry about that.
Baby, I'm hiding in the background. But since you said my name, I had to pop up. I'm not even in the ref shirt, but I got the Red Wings on. I mean,
love it. Repping Detroit. Detroit. I was just gonna.
I mean, honestly, the main reason he's not on here is because he knows you guys are gonna sweep the Roughnecks again. So.
All right,
hey, I'm not gonna say that. That's why we play the game. I don't know. I was expecting some roughneck smack talk. That's all. That's the only reason why I said it.
Well, I mean, you already know it. So let me ask you this: do you know about ref's law?
I do not. What is ref's law?
This is the saddest thing to happen in professional football, my friend. So over the last 3 years, it's 100% accurate.
Yeah,
I'll have you know, it's actually pretty crazy. The Houston Roughnecks / Gamblers have never won the same week as the Panthers, and most of the time, it's one wins, the other one loses. There's been, I think, 3 instances where both teams lost on the same date from season 1 of the USFL.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I didn't know that. That's crazy. We actually have a pretty crazy coincidence like that as well. Our defensive coordinator, Colin Bauer, his daughter is a big soccer player, big basketball player. She's a great athlete, and she plays soccer in the spring. And her soccer team, we are in the last, ever since, because we were at Towson together. So for the last 3 years, every single time that her soccer team wins, we win when we play on the same day. Every single time they lose, we lose. And guess what? She's on the #1 team in the state of Maryland right now. They went undefeated in the fall. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
So I hope your law beats my law, because honestly,
we got Runza law and ref law.
I would love to see both of our teams win on the same weekend.
Let's hope that happens week 1.
That's what I'm saying.
It can happen all the way up until except weeks 8 and week 10. Then we'll settle it there.
Flip a coin. We'll see what happens.
That's right.
All right, I'm going back to hiding.
All right, back to the shadows for ref. Zach, the mic's yours. Take it away.
Oh, Christian, every show on the UFL podcast is a battle with him and I, so I have to make sure I keep my wits about me with that. But ref's law is a thing. It stems back a few years. I'm just, you and I have been on a better receiving end along with Jake for that. So I'm happy. Let's keep that going. In the meantime, I want to talk this team here. And honestly, Christian, it's going to happen one way or another. Your position group, linebackers, it's one of the ones that cuts are one of the hardest to go through.
Yeah.
How are you taking out evaluations here coming up with that on the horizon? Because, I mean, this is a tough group to look through. I mean, very veteran group with some very great potential talents on your section of the roster.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough, and it never gets easier. Thursday will be the worst day of the year for sure. The day that we have to talk to all the guys and let them go, unfortunately, but it's part of the business, man. It's for me, it's going to come down to knowledge of the playbook, right? Of being able to understand, play multiple positions in our scheme. Because last year, Coach Nolan, like you were saying yesterday, Jane, or when you were talking to him yesterday, talking about the injuries, we were down to, of the 4 guys that we kept from final roster, only one of them was available in week 8. So they got to be able to play both positions on the fly. You got to be able to make plays. I want playmakers, and I don't want. And obviously, guys that make big mistakes are going to be are ones that'll hurt you. So, and obviously, the last thing is special teams comes into play. It's a huge part of the decision, and that honestly might be the final decision because everybody is so close right now. We have 5 guys with legitimate NFL experience in the room of the 6, and it's really hard to tell you who the 5 and 6 guys are or whatever. How many? If we keep 4, if we keep 5, I don't know how the final roster is going to shake out. But special teams are going to be a huge part of it because at the end of the day, if you're active on game day, and you're not the starting linebacker, you better be on all 4 special teams just because of how the rosters are laid out. And you also better be able to play both because I don't want to have to think about putting you in the game. If one or the other goes down, then I can't put you in, So it's really difficult. But the guys are mature. They understand that, how it is. It's part of the business, unfortunately. And, I hope, and I know they all know I'll do anything for them, after recommend them for anything, whether it's a CFL, indoor league, whatever, arena leagues, whatever it is, they have my recommendation because not only are they good enough, but that, we've built a really good relationship and they're great people. Most importantly, they're all great people, and this is everything for them. So whether it comes to my cuts, anybody's cuts in this league, I know people like to talk on social media, man, but please don't be too harsh on them for the next couple of days, man. It's a really tough time because you come here, you move your whole life here for the next 4 months, and all of a sudden it ends like that. And a lot of people get caught off guard by it, Some guys end up seeing it coming, but for the really close ones, it's not easy.
Yeah, I can't stress that. That's one thing I've learned through this process, through doing these shows over the last many years and finally getting to talk with players and coaches. Like it really is an extra commitment. You're not just going to do any ordinary job. You are uprooting yourself for a month or so, like if you're having to be cut and let go. Or if you're trying to stay hungry, if you let go and you're waiting for that phone call or looking for that next possible opportunity. Sure, you can always have something and stay focused on financials while you're ready, but you have to be ready to move and kind of flip around at the moment's notice. It's not a normal occupation by any means of the imagination. And I really do. I do hold players for that amount of dedication. I think all of us here can say we hold them to a really high standard for just that extra amount of just wanting to pursue what many of us can't do right now or only can dream of doing.
Exactly. It's really unfortunate it has to happen. But the good news is, obviously not really good news, but obviously injuries happen. And the guys that we do release are probably the first guys we're going to consider, after the fact. Because like I said, all of them can play. All of them can play at this level. All of them are good enough. I recommend if any other teams are watching, they're good enough. I'm telling you, they're good enough. I promise they can do it. But if obviously, I hope they get picked up by another team because I want them to play and continue to pursue their career and their dreams. But if they don't, and something happens here, they're the first guys we'll consider. So that's kind of what the conversation is probably going to be like. Because like I said, they all deserve to be here. They're all good enough.
No doubt about it. My final question for you, Christian. So I have respect and tons for the players. I see we all see the talent. It's out there. It's a very competitive scene. But what else is competitive is honestly, your scene as well. Coaching is one other that the more as well. I talk with people that have gotten more into this, especially in the college scene. You have to bob and weave, find that chance and that moment to kind of take your next step. Spring football is a little different, I feel like, and I kind of, we talk with coordinators more in the past, but I haven't really gotten to sit and kind of talk with someone who's more newer into this and kind of like taking that early college career and kind of taking that leap here. I mean, how's that for you, going into the spring football scene, starting with kind of in that FCS level, now going into what is essentially professional football that wasn't really as established maybe while you were playing in college?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult. Also, for us as spring coaches, we're kind of on the opposite job cycle, right? Our off season is in the opposite time when it's the fall or it's the summer, really right before camp. You kind of riles up for the pro guys or for college guys where their staffs are already set. So for us, like if we were to look for another job, it would have to be in the following December. For me, I got really fortunate where I was able to work at my alma mater, Monmouth University, the last 2 falls as a defensive analyst, where I was still able to get Division I FCS experience coaching, and be able to come back here and do this in the spring, which is kind of, I mean, you don't really see that from whatever. I'm leaving it off.
Way back,
He's going full rep mode.
Yeah, whatever. You don't really. A lot of guys on our staff, they'll kind of take their like that in the fall. Some guys take the fall off and just hang with their families. If we would like to get another job, whether it's the NFL or college, it's really going to have to wait till December for college and then really January, February for the NFL. So again, and then that's tough because now we're right before a season starts in our league, and you got to tell your head coach that, hey, I'm leaving. But if it was an NFL job, but obviously they'd understand. That's kind of why, at least everyone on our staff. I mean, that's kind of what we're hoping for and we're looking for.
Well, right, and then we've seen this too. Already with this year too. There's been a few people. You gotta weigh your options. It's a little different like that when you are trying to set up and you have off-season activities. You got to be in and present for pretty much all these programs. Doesn't matter the level. You got to be ready to go for the position or place you're going. So, I can't imagine having to be like, I got this awesome opportunity on a pro team, but also, what if a highly established college program comes calling? Then I have to make a really tough decision, and especially put my, staff, which again, you say they understand in that spot too, but it's a new frontier in a way, still kind of figuring that all out.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. Obviously, if like a really great college job were to come up, it's something that obviously all of us would consider. Something that really it's going to come down to what your family situation is back home and how you can make that work. But at the end of the day, this is a great job. I'm not looking. I'm not trying. Like this is. We talk about it all the time. Realistically, we work for 4 months of the year. We get to coach professional football players and coach on national television every week, and we get paid to do it. This is amazing. Like, if you were to tell me that I was going to be in this job 2 years ago when I was at Towson University, I would have told you you're crazy. When I got the call about this job, I just thought there was no way. So for me, a guy that, like, I didn't come from a football family, right? My dad isn't a football coach. My dad wasn't in the NFL. No one in my family. My dad sells produce in New York City. I'm just a guy that I played college football and I loved it so much that I went and I volunteered at Towson and worked my way up. So for me, I'm just really grateful to be here, and I'm really excited for this opportunity, no matter what it is. It's just a great place to be. And I'm really happy with where I'm at. I'm just trying to take full advantage of it and learn as much as I can from guys like Coach Nolan,
Well, we'll be wrapping up this segment here shortly, and Christian, we really appreciate you taking the time with us today. But my man Ducky, he's been quiet down there in the corner. We got to at least give him the stage for a moment.
I don't know. Michigan, me being from Ohio, I don't think we mix. No, you're not a UM guy, so I'll let it slide. But
I'm a MU guy. It's a little different.
That's good. But Michigan's actually Stallions just got done with their three-peat, But Michigan's going for their own technically with Defensive Player of the Year because they've had 2023, 2024, and then I'm going to assume Memphis probably takes it in 2025. But you guys have a good chance.
I would hope so. And again, I think it's because we just have really good players, man. We don't try and do too much with our scheme. Just try and coach them up on the techniques of it and where they need to be. But at the end of the day, they take over. Obviously Frank coming in was one of the better linebackers in the league the previous year. And I think Coach Nolan coming in, and helping him with some of the things that he did. Obviously, we had a lot of one-on-one meetings and stuff to help him, but Coach Nolan's scheme allows for his players to have success. And then, Coach Bauer comes in as a DC. Obviously, he was a D-line coach in year one. But year two, Coach Bauer trying to scheme some stuff up, man, and help out the D-line get one-on-ones, and Breland took full advantage of it. And that's why, led the league in sacks last year and had a heck of a year. So year three, hoping for a three-peat. I know Coach Marion's rooting for it to be a DB so we can get one at all three levels. But obviously, at the end of the day, we're just here to win games, and the rest will take care of itself, man. The Player of the Year stuff is great. It's a great accolade for our guys, great recognition for hopefully to help them get back to the NFL. But, at the end of the day, we're here to win football games, and the rest, all the accolades are great, but we're here to win.
Well, that was Christian, not the three-peat I expected you to ask about.
I mean, he's been cool, so I wasn't going to give him the other three-peat one.
I appreciate that. I still have nightmares about that. And as you guys saw, we have Chris Blewett now. So I went up to him today at practice, and I said, "Man, I'm glad you're on our team now, man. That 59-yard kick is still engraved in my head from 23."
I always give Jake crap because whenever I was a Maulers fan, the Maulers beat the Panthers 3 times in 1 year, and I always brought it up to him. And then the next year, the Stallions beat the Panthers 3 times in 1 year, and he's never going to let it.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I appreciate it. That's.
Ducky, now I gotta let him go on that note. Like, come on.
That's exactly how I would love to close out this.
He's never talking to us ever again.
We're not going to get any more Michigan guys.
Just talk about how we went 0 for 2 years in a row and lost in the playoff game 2 years in a row. That's really, really, really nice. I appreciate it, Ducky.
We had a good run.
Okay,
No,
before we
not
wrap
allowed
things
on the
up,
field.
before we wrap things up, Christian, I got to end with one more legit football question aside from Ducky. One of the big losses heading into camp was Daniel Wise. I believe he got injured or something. Who are you seeing right now on the defensive line that might step up? I mean, he was all UFL last year, was a key piece before he got injured last year. Who do you see stepping up and making plays?
Yeah, I mean, our interior D-line, our D-line, we feel is up there at the top of the league, especially in the run game. I think we have the best run stopping D-line in the league for sure. I mean, they do a great job of eating up blocks. They don't fly up the field in the run game. I mean, they sit in their gap and they play their primary and their secondary gaps, and they're strong on the inside. Obviously, Garrett Marino and Walter Palmore coming back as the 2 returning starters from last year with TJ Carter in there. And Keontae Shad's had a great camp as well. He's looked really good. He's got a couple habits that, we're trying to break and for him to fit our scheme a little bit more. But he's been great. He's really coachable, very quiet, but does his job, does a great job. And actually Levi Bell has put on a lot of weight, and he's playing some interior D-line too. So Levi's up to almost about 290 pounds. So he's playing inside for us right now. Yes. Yeah. I said the same thing and then I saw him and I said, holy crap, again. He still looks ripped up, jacked up, but he's just 30 pounds heavier. And he still moves the same, and he's extremely strong and powerful. So, we feel really good about our interior D-line. Obviously, losing to guys like Wise is pretty irreplaceable. He was so dynamic. And, when you watch our film, I mean, he's winning clean consistently in the pass game. He's just – a lot of times he missed probably like 4 or 5 sacks last year, but he's the reason that the quarterback steps up, disrupts the quarterback, things like that, which really help us out in the back end. And then obviously on the edges, I mean, Breland is Breland. I mean, he's still the same Breland that he was last year, man. And Rondell's been really good on the other side. Another great guy, especially against the run. And he's continuously getting better in the pass game stuff. And then Kenny Willekes and Mika Tafua have had unbelievable camps. The 2 of them have really, really flashed as guys that can not only burn the edge in the pass game, but are gonna punish you when you come bring pullers and bring tight ends to come block them. They've really taken pride in playing in the scheme and being extremely physical. And then we have another rookie, Ron Stone Jr. Father played for the Cowboys with Coach Marion actually. So they're really close buddies. And Ron's been great. He's extremely naturally athletic. Bigger body kid, naturally strong, got great hips in his pass rush. And he's been really good. So again, that's another room where the cuts are going to be near impossible. Like we feel we have 10 legitimate D linemen that can start in this league. And I'm not just saying that. I really think that we have 10 guys that deserve not only to play, but to start in this league. So for us to have to cut, one, maybe two of them, I don't even know how many, again, I don't know the final number we're going to come to. But that's going to be a really hard decision. And I'll tell you the truth, we have to make cuts in 2 days and we still haven't made the decision. So it's still really up in the air for all those guys. And I mean, but they've done a great job. It's really hard on us, and that's a good thing, and I know everybody in the league saying that. So it's a great way to show you guys. I mean, the talent in the league is getting better every year. The cuts get harder every year. Last year we thought our cuts were crazy hard because we were cutting guys that were starting for us the previous year in the USFL. And no offense to those guys, but these cuts are even harder to make. We have guys that everybody's got NFL experience. I mean, everybody. Like you can look at our roster, and I'm sure it's the same way around the league. You can look at all the rosters. I mean, at least 90% of every roster has been in the NFL at some point. I mean, this has got to be the best spring league ever, talent wise. I challenge anybody to find me spring league. I mean, maybe the 80s USFL, obviously. I mean, that's a little bit different. I mean, that was a real deal that they were trying to compete with the NFL. But for us, we're trying to be that bridge gap, for guys that are out on the street or guys that wouldn't have the opportunity to get back. So, I mean, the competition is really tough, and we have some really difficult decisions to make this week. And then the thing that nobody's talking about is the even more difficult decision is going to be who's going to be active and inactive on game day after we make these cuts.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, because obviously the cuts are really hard, but now you have an even harder decision to make 7 of those guys not players on game day. Right.
Right.
So it's going to be really tough decisions every week, but it's a good thing. That's good for us. That means that we got some good players, or at least we feel we got some good players.
No, I mean, absolutely, and Panthers fans should be excited because whoever's on that roster is going to be very, very talented, no matter who ends up making it through the cuts. But, Christian, dude, thank you so much for joining us today. This was a lot of fun. I know we talked about it in the offseason, wanted to make this happen. So, lights, no lights, we really enjoyed speaking to you. 0-3, 3-0, whatever it might be, we really enjoyed speaking to you. And we're wishing you the best rest of training camp. Looking forward to, I'm sure a bunch of us will be seeing you this season. So looking forward.
Yes, sir.
To it.
Always give, if you guys are at any games or anything like that, hit me up. We'll meet up before the game or Twitter or whatever. Hit me up, guys. So appreciate everything. I really appreciate everything you guys do for the league. You guys are half the reason for a lot of our publicity. And I some people might just say this. I watch you guys every week. I think you guys do a really good job of breaking the game down, talking about players, talking about the news of the league. And so thank you guys for everything you guys do for us as well.
Really appreciate that, man. Thanks for all you do. Thanks for the kind words, and best of luck. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate you guys having me on, man. See you guys soon.
See you in 3 weeks.
Yeah. He's out. Good stuff right there. Great interview today. Christian Runza, linebackers coach, Michigan Panthers. Glad he was on. And man, I love the energy. I love the talk. A little extra, of course, Panthers discussion. But I mean, the end is kind of what we have been talking about a little bit. I think more and more as this year's gone on, or we've talked about because of the just camps is the question of, is this the best spring football season we're going to have talent wise in the 21st century? I have to say that specifically because he is right. The hard to beat the 80s USFL, but I mean, that's what it feels like it's gearing up to, right? Like we're getting that talent pool to where we might finally eclipse that, 2020 glory year that everyone talks about, the XFL, that is considered that kind of like golden, I would say golden year, that staple. We might eclipse that finally for the first time in 5 years.
It's possible. I mean, the talent, I mean, again, like Runza said, and like we've been talking about, these cuts are going to be insane. And it also begs to ask a question like, hey, we legitimately could have 10 teams. Like, the amount of talent that's out there, we could have 10 teams with competitive players, I feel like. But that's another topic for another time. I think we're kind of winding things down here. But, yeah, gosh, Runza, he's a great guy, man. I love that guy.
Yeah. Also, to add on to what he said about whenever these guys get cut, don't harass them on Twitter, on Instagram, if they do get cut. Don't do that. I will be in your replies, and you don't want me in your replies. That's the last thing you want to see is a Ducky notification, because I'll be mad. Don't make fun of these guys. Do not.
I don't think any of our fans are that dumb. And if they are, then they ain't fans.
That's true.
Yeah. Ducky, you do you, man. That's all we know. But for real, it's going to be next week will be, it's that time of year. It's weird. It's awkward for us to discuss and for coaches and players to go through, but that's part of the game everywhere you go. And we'll be here to cover it all next week with both, likely UFL podcast and also even further breakdowns on ATU. So definitely want to stick around for that. And some other stories, of course, with the season coming up that we'll be still keeping an eye on, but we'll have to, for another time here, save it until most likely next week because we are getting a little tight on time. Gentlemen, it's been a great show.
Wait, I have to put Diego's thing on. I did say I'd put his thing on.
Please do. And as Dark Ref pops in and out. I was going to do points, Mr. in the shadows.
Oh, wait, Ref, I think you have to put it on because you're producing.
Okay. Oh, yeah. It's the link in the Discord.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
I was spending some time on Twitter.
The way he's got his setup made, I'm trying to remember. He looks like a YouTuber I've seen that's like.
It looks like what's the guy from Kim Possible?
Oh God.
He's always in the background. Wade?
Yeah, Wade the chair guy?
Yeah, he's Wade. Just in there, he's just hacking.
He's getting all the behind the scenes.
He can't even get us our graphic up. What's going on here? It's in the ATU Discord.
He's got this. We got faith.
I don't know.
Gotta have faith.
Oh, he got it.
There it goes. Yeah, we wanted Duck. You wanted to highlight and go ahead here, sir, because it's always cool to see community stuff like this. So, got to shout this out. Take it away.
It is pretty cool.
Doing the Lord's
work. I actually did this in 2023 in Canton. I made a bunch of flyers and I put them in the Canton Mall. Did the same exact thing. Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if it did anything, but it was just cool to do it. I saw a couple people pick them up. That's right. I like that.
Well, Diego Mendoza, we got to give you a shout out here because I mean, again, not even your game, but it's kind of cool. And again, there's a lot of great fans that they're taking the extra step because they want this to succeed. We've had a lot of that talks about the future of this league and like how badly people want this thing to thrive and survive and move forward. And I think there's some amazing stuff that community members are doing like this that it's pretty cool. Like it's I don't know what to say elsewhere. It's just like taking that extra step is kind of pretty awesome, I guess.
Yeah. Like I said a few episodes back, it's just fans are the biggest marketers. It's the biggest thing.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
Anytime someone brings it up, I gotta say it at work. Got to bring up the UFL, But yeah. Anyway, gentlemen, unless there's anything else I am making sure I'm not missing, and as the producer behind the scenes, Mr. in the chair pointed out, points. Let's do that before we head out here really quick and buzz around the horn. I'll go as it is appearing on my screen. So, Jake, welcome back on in. Giving you 15 points here. Joining in here and us getting a little bit extra Panthers representation with this interview. So you and I get bonuses this week. We're gonna get 15 each. So we'll throw that on. And I usually don't reward myself points right away, but I'll do that right now. Nick, gonna go to you next. We're gonna give you 20 extra bonus for the Townsend FCS connection. I just think that was pretty awesome. Plus the usual roster breakdown, so I have to add that on. Ducky, 15 going towards the community outreach post. Love it. Always got to show that stuff out. Show love to the community. And James, sir, giving you 20. I mean, great interview setup as always. Tons of hard work you're doing. And I mean, that Mike, again, guys, you got to check out that Mike Nolan one-on-one that he did and just put out today. It's good stuff. Always great quality work Mr. Larson does for PFN. So good job, sir. And you know what? I'll chip in 5 for Dark Ref. I think he gets 5 points. At least a little bit, for lingering. So that's that. Yeah.
I just want to point out, Zach, right now you're at 69 points.
I've done it.
I just want you guys. My girlfriend just messaged me and said she'd give me 100 points. I don't know if that counts. Did I get 100 points? Fuck.
I will not allow it. Stop the count. I don't want any more points for the rest of my life, by the way. I'll stay at 69.
Hey.
All right,
get
guys.
to 420 though.
Well, man, that's
I mean, I'm going to get 100 after week 1 anyways from James, so or 69.
No, you know it.
So if we're
It
betting,
has to be
does that
two
mean
games? It has to be 2 games over a milli on Friday.
Whoa, I thought it was 1 game.
That's 2.
69 points if 2 games over a milli on Friday night.
Thank
so
you,
it
Rap.
has to be Friday, the first game, which is probably a given. Plus, but you have 9 other weeks.
We also have Birmingham and DC in that same week. I feel like
Well, that's not on a Friday.
2 Friday games have to equal over a million.
Yeah.
Ducky, oh my gosh.
Man, what is happening right now?
Who else plays on a Friday?
St. Louis does a couple times, at least a few times, I think. So,
I got
and
it.
Michigan plays a couple times, so
Yep.
there's potential. But, anyways,
Oh wow. Okay, I'm taking this over, gentlemen. It's been a great show. We're gonna catch you next week as we'll have plenty to discuss with, especially rosters going to be fine. Basically, the final cut downs are going to happen. We'll have plenty to kind of discuss and dissect. So tune in, especially for ATU Monday, 6 o'clock Eastern time on UFL Podcast channel, and for the next episode of UFL Podcast. Because trust me, we're going to have tons of breakdown. It's going to definitely need both episodes if you want to discuss any points that we miss or things that come up and wheel and deal, as we say, throughout this next week. So season's coming up closer. Don't want to miss it. Stay with us at UFL Podcast, at Around the UFL as well on your favorite socials. And yeah, until next time, gentlemen, for this wonderful cast and for the producer that keeps spamming coming in every millisecond like he wants to say something. We'll catch you next time.
All I wanted to say, hold on, I just got to say one thing.
What are you doing? Well, you're hijacking my catch you next time?
Yeah, 12-0. Battlehawks suck.